Hi, this is Russ with DevotedGolfer.tv. I'm here with Don Brown with True Temper.
Yep.
And your official title at True Temper is?
My official design title is Product Development Manager. What that means is I'm designing all of the graphite shafts for the True Temper line.
Okay, and you get to live out in California.
Yeah, that's the hard part of the assignment, is having to live in San Diego where it's 72 degrees, 362 days of the year.
Yeah, I lived in Florida for 4 or 5 years, and we live in Dallas now and can't play golf when it gets below 40.
Well, I understand. I went to school in Seattle, so
Okay.
I was used to there, having to play in the rain if you wanted to play.
Yeah.
And now if it's 62 and slightly overcast, I'm probably
thinking,
not going to go to the
"Yeah."
golf course. I
Yeah,
just wait for tomorrow.
There's better days.
Yeah,
there's
tomorrow
better
will be a
days.
better day.
Yeah. Well, we kind of, as we've gotten older, we've drawn that line at around 40. And I think that line is slowly creeping up for us. Yeah. So maybe it's time to move someplace warmer.
Well, my parents live in Park City, and my dad's an avid golfer, and so he's out playing. If it's 36 and there's not snow on the ground, he still tries to get out and play in that weather, because in the mountains you kind of have to. If you want to play even 7 months out of the year, you got to learn to play when it's cold out.
So does he have a winter set? Does he go to graphite in the winter, or does he take that steel shock when you thin one and that shaft is cold and it's like it knocks your teeth out? Right?
Well, he plays graphite, partly because he's a proud dad and he wants to play the stuff that I've designed. So
okay.
there's an element of that to the fittings that we've done with him.
Yeah. Interesting. So you got your master's degree in
It's in materials engineering.
And posted a resume, and True Temper hired you within days.
Yeah, it was actually, I'd been kind of in golf even before I was officially in golf. I was a greenskeeper during college for a while. Before that, I worked at an outlet store for one of the biggest footwear companies there is. So every job I've had, with the exception of one in my life, has been in sporting goods in some way. My senior design project was a metallurgical analysis of putter heads. So
Really?
An opportunity when I put my resume up and a headhunter called and said, have you heard of True Temper? And I said, well, of course. They said, they've got a position that they're interested in interviewing you for. And I went out and interviewed for it, and interviewed on 2 separate days with a couple of different people. And it was when I left, the man who would become my boss kind of gave me like, we'll let you know, but really didn't seem like he was interested. And this was on a Thursday. So I got home, I was pretty bummed out. I'd already left school. I had about $150 to my name, and I was like, well, that didn't go out well. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do on Monday, but eating is not looking like that's one of those things. Phone rang about 2 minutes after I got home, and he said, we'd love you to come work for us. When can you start? And I said, well, 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. And he said, well, why don't you take Friday off and show up on Monday, and we'll start then. So, and that was, that'll be 13 years ago in March, and I've been there ever since, and it's been amazing.
Yeah. So this is, you've been in charge of the Project X line for how long now?
I want to say 5 years, 6 years. Any graphite shaft that's been a Project X graphite shaft, it's been a shaft that I've designed. So.
So this is a little different shaft. There's this shaft profile that I would call mid-soft.
Yes.
And that means butt stiff, tip stiff.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And a little softer in the middle.
Yep.
And in my fitting practice, I find that shaft fits more players than anything else. Now, I do have some other players that don't fit into that design, but that design is the holy grail for about 80% of the golfers out there. What kind of research did you do to get you to that point to say, we need to make a whole line of these things that are...
Well, as a driver shaft designer, obviously with drivers, the focus is distance and speed and how can I hit the ball farther. Our iron guys, they've got to work on things, trajectory control, spin control, dispersion control, all those things that are important for an iron player. For me, driver design is all about, let's get more distance. Everybody wants more distance. They still want to be able to hit the fairway, but they're going to take 280 in the rough over 250 in the fairway every time. So distance is our focus. And we'd really maxed out on getting weight out of the driver shaft. We had, last year of the show, we had the PXV 39 was one of our big launches.
I remember that.
Yep.
Yeah,
first shaft in the U.S. market that was less than 40 grams at 46 inches before you trimmed it. We were really excited about it. But then when it came time, all right, what's next on the drawing board?
When you get into lightweights, the market size is like...
The market size is small, and the other thing was once we'd gotten there, making the PXV 38 or 37 when you have the PXV 39, it's not that exciting, both to me because trying to squeeze a gram out is, not something when you get up in the morning like, I'm going to go find a way to squeeze 1 gram out of this thing, and it's not exciting to the marketplace, and it's not making big leaps forward, which is what we're trying to do. Yeah. So
at that point, you're working on paint, right?
When we did the original 39, there's no paint on. There's clear coat on that shaft, but there's no paint because we couldn't afford to put a color coat on the shaft because they weigh about a gram and a half, and that was going to make it the PXV 40.5, which is not nearly as cool. So, So what we did with these was, okay, now how can we get more energy stored in the shaft, more ball speed? And the inspiration was, if you've swung a ladies flex driver, you can really feel that shaft load up and release through impact. For most of us, we don't have any idea where it's going. You can load it up a lot, but you lose stability, you lose dispersion control. So
it teaches you tempo.
It does teach you tempo, yeah. Right. I mean, absolutely. But
I think most of us that are better golfers, we can straighten that thing out. But we're certainly going to have to slow it down.
You slow down, and even
we're going to have to wait for the head to show up.
Yep, and even straightened out, it's still going to be higher launch, higher spin. You're not going to get that better player, even if they can make it go straight. Yeah. They're not going to be able to hit it on a line with a launch and spin that's going to maximize their distance.
And they damn well better not swing it very fast.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we tried to do with this was, okay, we know we need to have a very stiff tip section because we need that to control our launch and spin and to give that stability feel. We know the butt end can't be really soft because you're going to get that lag feel at the top, and it's going to be, you're going to start with that and you're going to feel like now I need to wait for the head to show up if it flexes like a ladies flex or senior flex at the top. So that left the middle of the shaft. So what we did is we thinned out the wall in the middle of the shaft by taking material out. What that does is now the middle of these shafts are very soft, and it's a little bit softer. If you were to look at our stiff flex and do an EI profile, you'll see the middle of the shaft is getting down to a soft R and almost to a senior flex in terms of the EI profile in the middle. So it's dramatically softer in the midsection. It's not just a slight reduction.
I've done the EI profiles. I know what they look like.
Yeah, on your website, you can see it's a dramatic drop in the middle, and then it comes back up. So that's how we're getting we're getting some more load into the shaft, more energy. Golf's all about energy transfer. So if we can get a little more energy transferred through the golf ball, that results in more velocity. So that's
so you don't lose control at the top because the butt is stiff, and then down here through the middle of the swing, you're loading it up.
Loading the shaft up, and then it's going to release through impact. That stiffer tip, though, it's going to feel stable, and it's going to control the launch. Project X is a better player shaft. We wanted to bring these to tour players. We can't have something with a really soft tip for tour players and for the better players that look for Project X. So that was one of the really unique things. One of the other things, and if we line all these shafts up at the butt end, you'll see that the Project X logo is not in the same place. Well, why that is because the loading zone actually moves depending on what flex the shaft is. For the stronger player, we need to get that loading zone a little further away from the hands because we don't want them to feel the shaft load too much at the top.
Too soon, yeah.
You get down to the 5.5 and the 5.0, that swing speed, they need more help loading the shaft at the top of the swing, so that loading zone moves back towards the hands.
Interesting.
And if you look at where the Project X logo is, we're moving that with the move in the loading zone. So that's just.
So I take a look at these and just line them up, and I can say this is going to be a little softer loading zone.
Well, if you see,
higher loading zone.
And if you actually look at these specs are interesting. These are actually our graphic artist wrote the entire alphabet and all the numbers out and created a font from that. This isn't a font that we went and found on the internet to do these specs. He actually did all this by hand. So you'll see this one says LZ18. We got an LZ16 here. What that means is that's how far from the butt end of the uncut shaft the loading zone starts.
What am I feeling here?
What you're feeling there is a material we call flex lock. When we thinned out the middle of the shaft, the torsional properties in that area of the shaft, because the wall is thinner, tend to go up, and it will ovalize a little faster because the wall is thinner. Not a good thing for feeling a stable feeling golf shaft.
Right.
So what flex lock is, it's thin bands of unidirectional graphite wrapped around the shaft at 45 degrees. That doesn't stiffen the loading zone up at all because that would ruin what we're trying to do with the loading zone.
Yeah, exactly. Bias plies.
They're thin bias strips. It stabilizes the loading zone. So now we've got still got the thin wall, but we can go back and stabilize
you have the torsional stiffness.
Exactly.
So you have the GJ curve.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, we're filling it.
GJ is stable.
Yeah, we're filling back in that GJ curve because when we made that wall thinner, it got the same drop as EI.
Yeah.
So we go back in, we put the flex lock on the outside, bring that GJ curve up back to where the GJ curve doesn't have the drop in it that we do have in the EI.
It's always fun for me to talk to a shaft engineer because we can. I've learned the lingo.
Yeah, well, even, I mean, I was impressed with GJ because even a lot of the most devoted golf shaft fanatics, GJ is not part of the everyday vernacular. That's getting into the upper echelon of golf vernacular, for sure.
So I passed.
You passed, yep.
Yeah. Okay, so what kind of testing, what are your test results? You go out on a robot with these?
We do robot testing, and we have two phases. One is robot testing, which is great. But
now I hear you have a new robot, that you put another hinge in the robot.
Yeah, we did. We started off with kind of a stock robot, and we weren't able to mimic the swing as well as we wanted to. So we went and worked with a design company to take a very expensive stock robot and then add another layer of customization to it. So what we can do is we have a high-speed camera. We can high-speed camera some of the swings we want to mimic, and then go in.
I've heard this. You can take a pro swing
and put it into the robot.
Yep. How many hinges are in the robot now?
You know what? The robot's in Tennessee, and I'm out in San Diego, so I send the shafts to those guys and let the testing guys do their thing.
Yeah. I need to get out to Tennessee one of these days and get a look at the robot.
It's impressive. Where I actually go out and do more testing is I spend a lot of time out on tour, especially when we have a new product. Some years when we first launched the original Project X shafts, the blue ones, 7A3, 6A4, those tour issue shafts, I went to 25 tour events in 40 weeks. I mean, I was a de facto tour rep because I was spending so much time out there working with the players, really trying to dial those shafts in. With these shafts, actually, we took them over to the tournament in Wentworth. Our European tour reps got a really good relationship with a lot of the players over there. We had a lot of Project X usage over there, so it made sense. Let's go where we have the highest concentration of tour usage of Project X to test the new Project X.
Okay.
So we went to guys who were playing, say, 7A3 and said, here's the 70-gram loading zone. Let's see what kind of results you get. The feel feedback was one of the instantaneous, wow, it feels like this is loading up more. But then we go and we look at the launch numbers. We're like, hey, look, a couple miles an hour ball speed, but your launch and spin are the same that you were seeing from Project X before. So we're able to give you a little more ball speed, but you're not getting a lot, not getting extra spin out of it, or you're not losing control of it. It's still launching where you like to see it launch.
So by putting these loading zones in the shaft, you're actually getting a little more kick without basically delivering a little more loft.
Without doing, and that's why we had to reinforce that tip section. There's actually an extra flag of high modulus material in the tip section.
I've seen the bumps.
Yeah, that wraps around, and it's when you look at it when you first look at it as someone who looks at EI profiles, like you look at it and goes, well, that's bizarre. I mean, it doesn't look as pretty as some other EI curves look like.
I've seen tip flags.
Yeah, and so we have,
and
if you were to go to our booth, we actually have a GoPro video of someone rolling up the whole shaft, so you can actually see the tip flag go on in there. So that's how we did that. We had to go in and, by making this midsection soft, we got to really stiffen up the tip section of this. So we go in and we put in this double wrapping material down there, and that's how we load the shaft more, but we don't actually deliver more lofted impact.
Tour success?
Tour success is good. It's funny, sometimes I liken myself to kind of an obscure rock band. We're huge in Europe. Our European tour numbers are really big. Over here, I'll be honest with you, it's a fight with. There's a lot of good shaft companies out here every week, and so we've got some good players, some big players, and we're definitely working on improving those numbers this year.
Anything else you want to tell me about this that I missed?
Yeah, one of the things, if you notice, you look down, you see different colors here in these graphics. That's a weight signification. So if you see the white specs, that's a 50-gram shaft.
Okay. Yeah.
Blue is 60, and the green is 70. So,
and I understand there's no red because you're red-green colorblind?
I'm red-green colorblind, so if we had a red one here, I wouldn't be able to tell what the weight was. So
these colors are specific for your eyes?
Specific for my eyes, yeah. Well, part of it was just we wanted it to look good on TV. When you see somebody in the backswing on TV, we want you to be able to see what that shaft is, so then you can come into you and say, hey, I saw this shaft on TV. It's got this white tip.
And so you've got it down here in the tip colors, because that's really what you can see.
That's really what you can see. So that was definitely, we wanted the specs to really almost look like the paint job. Again, there's no paint on these shafts. That's more because we want you to be able to see what's under the hood. If we painted over these flex lock bands, you wouldn't be able to see them. So
well, you don't, I mean, you can actually feel them in this shaft.
Yep.
You can feel them, you can, I'm not sure if it's light in here that I can actually see a little taper reduction in here.
Yeah, it is reducing through there. So those flex lock bands kind of sit on top, and then there's actually material again over the top of them. And so, so we wanted Jibo to see that. If we're gonna spend the money, do the technology, put it in there, we don't want to cover it up with paint. So there's not any paint. We put a little spray fade on the tip of these just because graphite, where you have to grind the tip parallel in, looks a little ugly. But besides that, these are pretty much just raw with the cosmetics right on top of them.
Don, where can I find a fitter that has these shafts?
So these shafts are available exclusively through our Performance Fitting Center.
Why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about Performance Fitting Center? I know the term, but they might not.
So our PFC dealers, Performance Fitting Center dealers, are dealers that are some of the best club builders in the country, and we only trust these products with those guys. You know, if you go out and buy one of these, you're spending a couple $100. We don't want you to get the wrong shaft or be unhappy with it. So we trust these dealers with this product to go ahead and be able to fit somebody correctly into these. So the PFC dealers, if you go to TrueTemper.com, you'll see a blue and white PFC button. If you click on that, you can find a dealer in your area. They've got these products. There are also some other exclusive products that they have. They always get our first run products. We want to get into those guys first, get the feedback before we kind of mass release it to the marketplace.
And these dealers are trained and qualified by Swing Science.
Yeah, through Swing Science, you can't just go on the website, sign up and say, I want to be a PFC dealer and place an order. There's actually, you have to sit through a presentation that took us hours to put together. You know, the steel engineer, myself, are part of that video training, and it's not just advertisements and results of the shafts, it's also how we make the shafts. So you get to see in the steel factory, this is how we do our annealing and our heat treatment. In the graphite shaft, this is the cutting and rolling process. So it's a great group to be a part of, and like I said, if you want to get some of these products, you're going to get, the nice thing is not only are you going to be able to get these products to those guys, they're going to fit you into the right product.
They're going to fit you into them properly.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Don, thank you very much for joining us today.
It's been great.
This is the True Temper Project X loading zone shaft, available through the PFC dealer program. Thanks for spending your time here today with DevotedGolfer.tv.